My upgrades are invincible. Chapter 88, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. Bolts of blindness to blind it, bolts of gravity to make it weigh twice as much to itself to hamper its movements, bolt of thunder hearing to enhance its hearing by 500 times. All but deafening it. Bolt of the flooding runny noses, bolt of cookie bones that would turn the bones of whatever the bolt struck into brittle but delicious chocolate chip cookies. I was making as fucking many cursed giant bolts as I could think of. As well as upgrading my siege ballista as I knew it simply couldn't actually deal with the fucking scales of the amphisbaena. Until I got a bit of an idea seeing the many massive heads of the amphisbaena. I remembered Hera forcing the name Heracles onto me at the Donatus for curing materia and escaping her wrath, or more like her intentions. So with several monster stones that belonged to flying monsters along with some wings from the sonic bat, I upgraded the giant siege crossbow with far more power to send its bolts outwards. Along with the ability to partially enchant the bolts with a tracking ability. And with all those cursed bolts made, I got myself atop a larger still standing building that hadn't been racked over by the amphisbaena's 5 different elemental beams. Then as bright spears of light that seemingly came from Eris down on the beach that was keeping the amphisbaena on the coastline. I loaded up the crossbow with the first bolt, the bolt of blindness. What even is my life? Trying to hunt a fucking kaiju with an oversized crossbow. I muttered to myself incredulously as I aimed at the amphisbaena and then mentally began picking a target. The amphisbaena had 5 heads, with each head being a different elemental alignment which coincided with the type of breath it could output. And I had seen it shooting out the following elements from its mouths: acid, fire, poison, ice, and crystals. And after a moment of thought, I locked onto the head that was spewing out a hail of dagger-like crystals that was destroying the city more than the other heads. A very loud and sharp thwack rang out as the spear-like bolt of blindness was shot from the siege crossbow at high speeds towards the amphisbaena's crystal elemental head. And I could hear the loud crunch the bolt made as it slammed home into the especially thick scales of the neck of that particular head. For a split moment as I looked at the spear stuck in the most durable head, I fear it would just fall out. But then the amphisbaena's 5 heads roared with utter fury as they wiped around in a total frenzy as the curse of blindness was forced upon all 5 sets of their eyes seeing as they shared a single body. Okay. The bitch is blind now. Thankfully the monster doesn't have actual magic resistance like dragon monsters and adventurers do. I mused as I loaded up another bolt, this one of the flooding runny nose cursed one so it would hamper the serpent monster's breathing. Then a powerful lance of water slammed into the amphisbaena from the beach out of my view and I realized the surviving higher-leveled adventurers were finally getting their head on straight. Though I doubted any higher-leveled members of the Poseidon Familia would be coming with whatever terrorist attack had decided to attack here and now. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't just holding up defending their god, and the remains of the Hades Familia who had lost their faunas. Nothing more than level 5s probably will join in the defense. I muttered to myself as with a loud thumping noise the runny nose bolt was shot outwards and slammed into the lower chest area of the amphisbaena where all the heads connected. Then another series of spells slammed into the amphisbaena where multiple mages had seemingly finished chanting their spells. But as the smoke cleared from the volley of elemental spells, the amphisbaena was utterly unharmed seemingly beside some jitters from the lightning spell that had coursed through the bolts I had in the monster. Lower-ranked spellcasters' preferred AoE spells aren't concentrated enough to get past the amphisbaena's serpent scales. I mused with annoyance as I loaded up another cursed bolt while being thankful that the magical explosions didn't blow up my bolts that had half buried themselves into the amphisbaena. But then, even with the amphisbaena's previously red glowing eyes having been tilted blackish purple from the blindness curse, the amphisbaena's 5 heads from out of the smoke of the previous spells were aimed directly at me. Fuck. I whispered as a beam from the fire head bloomed and I threw myself off the building and into a nearby ditch as the blinding white beam of fiery destruction obliterated everything above me. And my escape wasn't perfect either. Just being within 5 meters of the compressed beam of fire, no it wasn't even fire that point. It was a literal plasma torch, and my eyes were blinded, burning, and I felt my body even under my armor being burnt merely from being the distance I already was from the flames. I quickly popped open and drank a healing elixir and then took out several large blocks of ice from my fusion space that loudly hissed as my superheated armor was flash-cooled from its previously scalding temperature. I can't take a direct hit or I am literally dead. For all that I have some decent fantasy armor, being under a welding torch can still cripple if not kill me through a variety of means, as even now I can feel how little oxygen is in the air where that torch was. I thought as I held in any squirming as my painful wounds healed up. But after a minute of healing I got back up and grimaced, seeing the area was a blackened crater from where the beam had missed me, and looking at the amphisbaena in the distance I grimaced as I knew the siege crossbow was destroyed. Gotta put the rest of the bolts into the amphisbaena in close range. I don't have any more materials to make another siege crossbow that can track generally where I want the bolts to go. I thought, taking a deep breath as I made my way closer to the amphisbaena, where more of the city was destroyed and corpses of the inhabitants littered the streets where they couldn't get away. But as the amphisbaena was still stumbling blindly upon the beach, I could feel something. I could feel the sword array I had put around my property when I first moved here to Melon to keep monsters out. I grinned as I saw the very particular wood summoning spell of the captain of the Rucadavata familia who lived next door and had bound one of the mouths of the amphisbaena. Good job, Eleanor. Now let me help with that head. I muttered as I spent a good deal of my mana to forcibly expand the range of the sword array, and then with a scream of the amphisbaena, dozens of flying swords slammed home into the eyes of that head that Eleanor had bound in place momentarily. Then, even as my flying swords violently spun as they attempted to drill past the amphisbaena's ruined eye sockets into that head's brains, I saw a powerful beam of ice magic slammed into the neck of that head, freezing it in place, and I realized the spell had come from Riveria from the Loki familia, giving me all the time I needed to control the flying swords to finally grind through the bone protecting the serpent's brain, and a dozen flying swords entered the brain of that amphisbaena's head and quickly shredded it. One head down. But my flying swords need to be replaced. I still need to get close to actually reach the sword array, I thought with a grimace before I steeled my heart and made my way back to the beach where the main battle would be taking place.